I've got it's 5 o'clock. So, well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Let me call to order this pre-commission session of the Macon-Bibb County Commission for Tuesday, August the 18th. And let me read my little statement here. Out of an abundance of caution, Macon-Bibb County Commission meetings scheduled for Tuesday, August the 18th, 2020 will be available to the Macon-Bibb County Commissioners by video conference only. For the 5 o'clock pre-commission meeting and the 6 o'clock p.m. commission meeting. Commission chambers will be closed to the public and the press in order to slow the spread of COVID-19. Therefore, the public and press may only access the meeting simultaneously online at www.maconbibb.us or www.facebook.com/Macon-Bibb County. With that having been said, I see we do have more than a quorum of folks looking at my attendance roster and pictures. Welcome. Glad that you are here. I have one very short announcement to make to the commissioners. That there is to be a socially distanced ribbon cutting ceremony tomorrow morning at 9:30 at Middle Georgia State University for the new roundabout. And I understand a couple of our commissioners are planning on being there and making comments. So you're all invited and would be welcome to attend Middle Georgia State University, the ribbon cutting on the new entranceway and roundabout to their main campus. With that having been said, are there any additions to our agenda for the pre-commission meeting? Any new business that we need to bring up?
I just want to know why y'all didn't come and save me from jail.
Jail.
I didn't know you. I didn't know you needed saving.
I had only Rabbi was the only one who prayed for me.
Please elaborate.
That's all you needed.
The rest of you, I'm.
Well, how do you know we didn't pray for you too?
That's right. That's right.
Because
We got a couple of items, Mr. Mayor.
All right, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, sir. I'd like for Michael, we do have the newest mask mandate that I worked with over the past couple of days with Michael. We do have it ready and could add it to the agenda. I don't wish to add it to the agenda. I would like for commissioners to see it first so they can have input, and we can go from there. If we've got time, if you want to share some of it, that'll be fine. I don't want to get long drawn out because I want commissioners to be able to see it. The other item is that I've gotten all my questions and answers in response to the train property, and I wanted to make a motion to move that off the table and get it added back to the agenda. If I'm in order.
Right. Well, I will take that as a motion to add it to the agenda as we go down under new business, and we will say it. So that's a motion to add the train recreation contract to the agenda for further discussion. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Second by Schlesinger. All in favor of adding it to the agenda for discussion later in the meeting, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no.
No.
Got one no. That was Commissioner Bivens, I believe, but the ayes have it. So we'll add it to the agenda for.
I think it was
Watkins.
Watkins. I'm sorry. Please excuse me. It was Commissioner Watkins that voted no. But that the ayes have it. So we'll add that to the agenda. And we'll also add a discussion of the mask ordinance from Michael, if we get down that far, if he doesn't cover it under his other update on the governor's executive order. With that having been said, I think the first thing that we need to be brought up to date on is the CARES Act funding. and Julie Moore has a presentation to make for us at this point. Julie, are you there? And can you unmute yourself and lead us in that discussion, please, ma'am?
Hope so. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
you're good.
We have a PowerPoint. Rachel, do you have that loaded?
She does. If you'll just give her a few minutes, she had to reboot her machine. It'll just give her just a couple minutes.
Less than a minute.
So I'll talk to what the PowerPoint is going to point out. We've learned a lot in the last week since we talked to you last Tuesday, and have been successful in getting into the portal that the state has set up, where we have to submit all of the paperwork for this funding. And we've also had some clarification on what we were able to submit in the first round, phase 1, part 1, which is the $2.4 million worth of expenses. And the main thing that we've learned is we had a little different end date of what they were accepting as reimbursables. So the state asked that everything that was being submitted for 2.4, thank you, Rachel, is actually an expense that we incurred prior to June 30. So we had to go back and get some different receipts and categories. And so this is just kind of a reminder of the information we gave you last week. And Rachel, we can run through a lot of these early slides and get to what we have at one of the last slides, which is really the budget that we're trying to work off of how we're submitting based on what is sometimes some changing information in the moment that we are making some of our submissions. You see here that we're still hoping that our whole pro rata population-based formula will mean that we're really eligible for $26 million, but all we've signed for at this point is the $8 million. And all that we've had to go ahead and submit is the 2.4. So Rachel, if you want to keep running down those pretty quickly, we'll get to the last slide that says how we've submitted. And here, yeah, keep going to the last one. This is the same PowerPoint as last. We had, this is what we thought we were going to be submitting. And then there should have been a last slide on there. That might be it. So go up one slide. Go up one slide for me. Thank you. So what we were able to submit that we had actual appropriate invoices and reimbursements and pay stubs and all of the documentation required, we were able to submit the $2.4 million, and we had to be within $1 of the amount given to us. And we have reached out to the Department of Health as well as River's Edge, and I really have to thank them for their fast work, because they were able to go back and readjust and give us more information so that we were only submitting expenses that had been incurred through June 30th. But you'll see that we were able to submit for telemedicine capabilities that were established through River's Edge, payroll expenses for public health and healthcare, that's both River's Edge and Department of Health employees, that we were able to seek reimbursement for that. We were able to claim all of the payroll expenses for our public safety employees, and I want to put an asterisk by that number because it's one of the things that has continued to be reiterated from GMA and ACCG, that this is an expense the state feels very comfortable with, and they want us to use it because it's easy for them to process. We did not use the total amount here because we're saving a bunch of that for the next round, but we were able to claim a significant amount. We had receipts for additional sanitation measures that have been taken when we've called in some outside folks to help clean offices once we've had any sort of positive exposure known. We were able to claim some of the costs that that the Department of Health has incurred for caring for the homeless populations. You may have seen some of the porta potties and hand wash stands that were put out in 4 downtown locations, because when places closed and people didn't have access to restrooms, that we needed to provide that, and Department of Health stepped up and did that, so we're seeking that reimbursement. Some additional distance learning, again, for River's Edge and some of the folks that they help with on a daily basis, expenses for food delivery, some improvements that we had already incurred by the end of June for telework, and then some of our other big reimbursables were for the paid family leave, the paid medical leave, and the PPE for employees. But again, it was a little different once we got in the portal and realized that there was a June 30th, so we had to shuffle some of those numbers around. But all of those have been submitted, and we are waiting for the state approval that we've given all the appropriate documentation and that they will approve these as reimbursable expenses. And that will let us go for the $5.5 million. But what we have also kind of had clarifying information about is that 5.5 has to have been an expenditure that occurred prior to September 1st. And so while some of the federal regs say this money can run through December 30th, the state is asking that they want this first 30% to have been spent before September 1st. So on the second slide, Rachel, if you'll go to that one, we have rearranged the numbers to see what we can do to meet that goal and get to the $8 million. And that, again, is going to be more of the telemedicine funding, public health and healthcare employee funding, public safety employees, and you'll see that we're continuing with some additional sanitation measures, which might include adding plexiglass in other areas in public buildings or continued cleaning, continued care for homeless populations, expenses for food delivery, the improving telework capabilities. We have ordered computers and are waiting for those to arrive because, again, another stipulation that has become very clear to us in the last 7 days is that all of that equipment has to be in hand by September 1st for it to qualify in this round of funding. We are anticipating paid medical leave and PPE for public employees that we will continue to incur, so that would get us to the $8 million. If we are successful in going through all the gates, as they're calling, and approved for everything, we think this will open up the $16 million where we might have the ability to be more creative and get money out into the community. But because the stipulations were things that had been spent by June 30th and things that had been spent by September 1, this is the best we can do to get to the $8 million. So at this point, again, we have submitted the 2.4. We're waiting for final state approval, and this is our plan to submit for the 5.5 so that we will have given all the information they need to give us the third round of funding.
Mr. Allen, I'll get to you in half a second, but let me get a point of clarification. We have to submit this 5.5 figure by September the 1st. Is that right?
Yes, and it has to be expenses that were incurred by September 1st.
Okay, so we've got today is August the 18th. We have committee meetings next week. That's the 25th. But the next time we would be able to meet and formally approve anything is the evening meeting on September the 1st, which is too late. So that brings us to, we either gonna have to go back and adopt some kind of language to allow us to submit and resubmit, and if something's rejected, then resubmit again as an administrative act, or we're going to have a special call meeting to finally approve what goes in. So Chairman Watkins, this I trust will be on your agenda for next Tuesday, operations and finance.
So I have some questions and I have some concerns on what I'm looking at. Just this first time processing it or seeing it today, and I'm willing to let's do a special call meeting on Thursday for the purposes of going over this CARES Act in a little greater detail. I'm not sure about the rest of the commission, but like I say, I need a little bit of clarification.
Fine. I was thinking that your meeting on next Tuesday could be a time when you would go over this operations and finance meeting and hash it out at that point in time. But so, and we still may have to have a special call meeting if you want that to adopt.
I'm confused to the point of just your first question. Like last time we discussed this, everything needed to be submitted by September 1st. So if I'm understanding, things could be encumbered but not expended by that time. So I'm understanding that the language of encumbered has went away and the document needs to be submitted by September 1st and all things need to be expended.
Yeah, this came out last night. And just to give y'all context, when the federal government released the PPP funds to be spent, there was a lot of confusion. It was administered through banks for small businesses about how you spend it, et cetera, and they kept changing the regulations. Well, this is kind of like Groundhog Day. They're doing the same thing here. So these came out last night. And so, for example, to answer your question, Commissioner Watkins, can counties enter projects for planned expenditures? This is a question. Can counties enter projects for planned expenditures even if they have not been incurred to spend against phase 1 dollars in order to meet the September 1st deadline? They keep saying it's the answer to these goods and services must be received and paid for by September 1st to qualify for any reimbursement. And the danger of this is changed. Even that June 30th date, what Julie was talking about for part 1, which is the 2.4 million, we thought it was going to be September 1st, and they moved that back to June 30th. So the point of this is you got to spend it and get the services and goods in hand by September 1st for that 5 point whatever reimbursement. And the gating she was talking about is we've got to do that part properly in order to be eligible for the 16 million. That's the phase 2 part of this. Is that correct, Julie? Am I saying that right?
Correct. And I think that's more likely what Commissioner Watkins is really going to want to get his hands on as far as the 16 million of thinking how we get it out into the community, because at this point we can't claim an action going forward. We can only claim anything that's been spent prior to. Prior to
this document being released last night, we thought, and you were correct, that what we had to do in part 2, which is the 5.5, was to submit a plan with a budget that would be spent by December 30th. And that's been changed as of last night to you've got to spend the money by September 1st and have the goods and services received by September 1st. So it's
that's for the 5 point whatever million.
That's for both. That's right. That's for both 5.5 and the first part, which is 2.4. So it's all being treated the same now. In September 1st, you got to spend it and have the goods and services in hand.
Well, can I ask this question to Julie? Have we spent any?
Well, hold on, Commissioner Wynn. Hold on. I had Commissioner Allen first, then I'll go to you. Commissioner Allen.
Thank you, sir. Julie, the money that we're dealing with now, we have the landfill that's closed. We have the other departments that we're low on personnel. We can't keep anybody running. Can't keep these departments running. Can any of that money that you talked about earlier be utilized to hire part-time people to put these divisions back up and running?
At this point, we have not been able to figure out or get a question answered that made us feel comfortable in submitting those reimbursables. What we feel comfortable in submitting reimbursable for is public safety funding for patrol and fire suppression, and then that money would come back to us, and then I think once it's back to us in our grant fund, if we transfer it to general fund, we could use it to supplement other things more specifically. But as far as trying to follow the regs that we have at this point, we really feel much more comfortable with public safety salaries. We have not figured out how to, as we tried to talk about how do we maybe supplement some of these departments that we're having so many people out.
But Julie, wouldn't Nigel's department in the electrical with the red lights and stuff be considered something of danger that, is needed if the electricity goes out? Or I mean, almost like police or fire.
They've been pretty consistent with their answers in the frequently asked questions that what is eligible is public safety as defined by fire, EMS, and police patrol. And they don't want police admin and they don't want fire admin. They want really specifically police and fire, and that they believe the Treasury guidelines are going to stand behind them and say that every call they had to take could have been a COVID-related call.
Okay.
Commissioner Wynn, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So, Julie, we have, from what you
from what I gather, expended 2.4 million for the June 30th deadline. Is that correct? But have we come anywhere near spending 5 point whatever million for the next deadline, which is September 1st?
It is the second PowerPoint, and I may send one out to you all just by email that may be easier to see side by side, that we have identified public safety salaries, and again, really grateful that the Department of Health and River Edge keep such good records, and we're able to submit with us that between those big salaries and our salaries and the PPE expenditures and the telework, yes, I think we can submit accurate documents, appropriate documents in the line items that they are allowing us to do, and claim the $8 million, and it will have been spent by September 1st. And I hope by doing that, it gets us to that third phase, which will give us the opportunity to do more grant-based to the community, things that I think Commissioner Watkins and I have talked about, and others. We know we want to see that happen, but we've kind of got to get these first two right, and we are trying our best to make sure we have all the documentation needed.
Julie.
Just hoping we can get that second phase done so we can get to that third phase. I hate to lose any of this money that they're offering.
Julie, will you circulate the guidance released by the governor's office? Commissioner Watkins had requested that.
So
is that the frequently asked questions that we received? Yes. Okay. Yes.
Mr. Watkins?
Yeah, and so I'm clear on, I guess, the game that's being played with the total allocation is $23 million.
Correct.
26.
And am I understanding that if all of the 2.4, like if the 2.4 million isn't completely expended, do we still have access to $23 million, or if we don't spend $1 million, we lose $1 million in that fact?
No, you have to exhaust. Tell me if I'm saying it right, because you've been on the portal more than I have, but I've read the regulations. The way I read it, and again, the game we're having to deal with is and this is not a disrespectful to the governor's office, but the rules change sometimes, and we don't really know. Like we got these last night, is that you have to, the way I understand it, the way I read the regulations, you've got to spend completely the 2.4 part one to get to part two, which is the 5.5. Then you got to spend the 5.5 completely, exhaust it, in order to get to phase two, which is the 16 million. So that's, you got to go through every gate and completely exhaust it before you get to the next gate.
And what was not clear to us last Tuesday, was that we were going to have receipts for payments that occurred June 30 for the 2.5 and September 1 for the 5.5. But again, I'm just grateful we do have some community partners who are able to have their paperwork in great order, with timesheets spent that said clearly COVID related, to perfect receipts with dates that matched, and we were able to get that 2.4 in. And as soon as I get approval that 2.4 has been accepted, this is the plan to continue in that same allowable expenditure line and capture July and August costs, and that should get us to the 8 million.
All right. So yeah, that was exciting. I got two questions. So if I'm understanding you right, like you got a total of 5 million almost, or that 3.8 million from the second half. And if I'm understanding, that is just the basic salaries of police and fire department.
Yeah.
Correct.
Did that include the 700,000 we've paid for commercials? Have we paid that yet? Or
No, we haven't paid it.
We have not paid it yet, so we don't have anything that we can count as an expenditure out the door yet. We are working to pay a few of those invoices this week so that we might be able to complain.
Can we get can we get that invoice and pay it early?
We're working on that for this week.
All right, if there are no further questions right now, let me move on. And Michael, can you give us an update, please, sir, on the governor's most recent order?
And like I said,
order.
Expect more time for this on Thursday. We can work out a time, but I think it wouldn't be a bad idea. Actually, it's what we.
If I mean, what you're saying, Commissioner Watkins, is you'd like to have a special call meeting of the commission on Thursday rather than waiting until next Tuesday and meet during your committee. I had thought that maybe
What I'm
we could
saying
use.
is, yes, that's what I'm saying. That's just exactly what I'm saying.
You haven't asked who can come. I can't come Thursday. You just.
All right.
Right.
You on the committee?
Is it the finance committee
Right.
or the entire commission?
Yeah, what is it?
Well, I think it would have to be the entire commission, Mayor Pro Tem.
I need a quorum of the finance committee. If you want to do a special call committee on that day, I'll drop down because of that. But otherwise, I'll expect to meet.
Okay. Well, I don't mind, Commissioner Watkins, if you want to try to call a special call meeting of your operations and finance committee, if you can get a quorum, then certainly you can get your committee together and y'all can look at this. And if Julie is available, and hopefully she can make herself available, or somebody, and bring you up to speed and answer as many questions for you as we can. But as far as taking official action by the commission, hopefully we won't need to do that, but we may. And
but I guess
that would be subsequent to the 28th. I mean, to the 25th.
No, what I keep getting concerned about that is that the natural meeting date is September 1st. And if you don't have anything in order before September 1st, that is also the deadline day. And I think we've scheduled the meet at like 5 o'clock on that day. So I don't know if it's a midnight deadline or what, but that's just pushing it really close. So.
Yeah, let me also say that I think what they said in the language, and do correct me if I'm wrong, is that you all needed to accept the terms and agreements, which you have, and that otherwise everything's by policy, which is our grant policy is that we apply for grants and put budgets in, and then if we actually get the grant, we bring it in, and then that's when it's approved. So they have told us repeatedly from the state, we need to get this in as quickly as we can so that they still have time to look and say, well, no, this cost didn't really match, and they'll kick it back to us and we have a chance to come back. So I agree with you, Commissioner Watkins. We need to really nail down your committee next Tuesday at the latest of any further questions or numbers that we're needing to submit, because we don't want to wait.
And I guess also, like last time that we met, we were supposed to have a budget for the 2.5. I think we verbally approved that last week, and I think we were expected to have that for us to vote on today. I don't know if I see that. So we decided that either we didn't need that or we're not going to do that. And I'm still concerned about the idea that you don't think we're going to need that documentation of it seems weird to me. But if Duke's available, Elizabeth, so maybe I'm
out of an abundance of caution to have you all approve something next Tuesday, which is why I think it would be good for you to have a special called meeting after the committee meetings in the morning, just as an extra precaution. I do not think it is absolutely necessary according to our grant policies, but I'm very comfortable with you all trying to approve this just so we can have one more thing that says people agreed to it.
Yeah.
Right now, we don't have. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. So from a legal standpoint, the commission has done what it's supposed to do in getting the money already. It approved the acceptance of the 8 point whatever, and it approved the execution of that funding agreement. The commission has the discretion, it does not have to do this, to approve whatever officially or unofficially. My instinct is y'all want to keep it a little bit flexible. I do recommend that there be weekly information given to y'all about the spending of this money, et cetera. I know Julie has already talked about that, but it's within your discretion how you handle the budget. But remember, the first part has to have already been spent by June 30th anyway. There's not a whole lot of discretion on that. And then the second part has to be spent and the goods and services have to be in hand by September 1st. So I agree with you. The sooner that we meet and get this worked out, the better, so we can get to phase 3. Michael?
Let me add, if we get to phase 3, I think that's where you would want to be most involved, and that I would feel more comfortable if you approved budgets, if you were saying we want to spend 500,000 to grants to small businesses, or we want to spend 500,000 to PPE, because that's forward facing and long term. I think that I would feel more comfortable if you were approving a budget that we were submitting for that. But because these are reimbursables, I'm just scrambling around finding everything that is reimbursable that we can submit. And the numbers I've presented tonight that I'll send out to you by email are the best I have right now. And then by tomorrow, some of them will be a little tighter numbers as we continue to get documentation. And I would be happy to present that to you Thursday or next Tuesday.
Right.
I don't want it to hold me up from having the ability to submit for the
What
reimbursables.
So
I'm inclined.
please send me the documentation.
Commissioner
because
Washington, Commissioner Washington, let me say this. What I'm inclined to do at this point is to, if you want to call a special call meeting of your committee later this week and you can get a quorum, that's fine. And Julie can meet with you and your committee to look through this. We will plan on having, and next Tuesday, during the committee meeting days, we'll have that time, but then a special call meeting of the commission following the committee meetings, maybe at 1 o'clock, say 1 o'clock p.m. next Tuesday, the 25th. And that would be for the sole purpose of trying to approve the submission and give the flexibility that in case the state kicks something out, give Julie the authority to switch over and amend it and send it back in before the first, because I think that's the whole key to it, that she may hear, with 24 hours notice that we're not going to allow this. Well, if you've left that money on the table, that could be a deal killer for getting into round 2. So you've got to give her the flexibility to amend it and send it back in, but we'll have more details on all this next Tuesday at committee meetings.
And I appreciate it, but there is a strong chance that when we get to the conversation about the 16 million that you tell me about overnight, that you have until all expenditures need to be spent by October 1st or something special like that. It's just the way this is going, and
From the governor's office is not from us. We just need to send them.
Yeah, I'm not blaming. I'm just saying that is.
Yeah, it is.
That is a problem, and again, it's just me speaking right now. But I know several other commissioners have concerns, and I still don't see at the beginning of the concerns is Commissioner Allen's community engagement dollars. I don't see where that's calculated at all at, and but anyway, like I say, there's other stuff on your agenda today. I'm very interested in the conversation on blight.
Right.
So we'll expect to do this at some other day.
Good. Okay. Michael, you want to do the update on the governor's executive order?
Yes, sir. And just one quick comment about it, just to remind the board, if there is a special call meeting to be called for operations and finance for later in this week, by the Open Meetings Act, we have to give 48 hours notice to the press. So if it was right now, you would be talking about 5:30 p.m. on Thursday. So, if that's something you wanted to do, we would be really talking about probably a Friday meeting at this point. But turning to the governor's order, so the governor's latest order came out on the 15th on Saturday, and really represented a sea change in the orders that he's been doing. It was a big departure from the last 5 or so. This current order runs through the end of August, which is August the 31st is a Monday, and there were a few substantial changes that he made in this order. The first one and the biggest one as it relates to this board has to do with local face masking requirements. And he adds 2 definitions to the definitions section. The first is the term local option face covering requirement, which is a requirement that complies with what I'll spell out in just a moment as far as allowing local governments to require face masks in public. And then he adds a second definition for threshold requirement, which means that over the last 14 days, the county has had a total of 100 new cases over those 14-day period per 100,000 population or more. as published by the Georgia Department of Public Health. And the last I checked, this was Saturday. Our case rate was 586.3 cases per 100,000 people over the last 14 days. So right now, where I talk about threshold requirement, we have met that. And from looking at the map on the public health website, just about every county in the state of Georgia has met that. And Spencer Hawkins just mentioned to me that it's 645 today as our 14-day history rate. In section 4, the healthcare section, there were new provisions added for dentist students and dental hygienist students that finished school in 2020, but have not been able to take the licensing exam because of it being delayed or postponed because of COVID. Those students are able to get temporary licenses through the Georgia Board of Dentistry and practice under the supervision of a licensed dentist, and along with any other regulations that may be promulgated from the Georgia Board of Dentistry through the end of the public health emergency, however long it continues to be extended, which right now is scheduled to end September 10th, but he's been extending those on a 30-day increment. Section 7, education and children. There's generally a requirement for child care programs to be licensed through the state of Georgia. And one of the exceptions to that licensing program is for summer day camp programs that are operating only during the summer break in the school year. And so in this latest order, he adds a section that allows those license exempt summer day camp programs to continue operating in overlap with the school year that's now started, for the purpose of providing a site where students can come and participate in remote learning for their school, as long as there's no more than a child to staff ratio of 20 children to one staff member, and they're subject to additional monitoring and restrictions requirements. There was also a section that eased napping requirements for pre-K programs, for half-day pre-K programs. And both of those provisions will continue to remain in effect for as long as the public health emergency continues to be extended. The government section is where he adds in these new rules for the mask ordinance. And if you look at the order, these are, I think, page 38 and 39 of the new executive order. And there are two new permissions that are granted with respect to mask ordinances. The first one allows for all jurisdictions in Georgia, all governmental entities in Georgia, to include counties and cities, but also things like industrial authorities, school board, and so on, to require, to control the terms by which people can enter onto governmental property. And so that specifically includes requiring face masks of employees and members of the public that enter onto governmental property. And so one of the two ordinances that I prepared for Mayor Pro Tem reflects that and calls for a requirement to wear face masks while on Macon-Bibb County property. The second requirement that the governor, or the second permission that the governor granted in this executive order, says that we can impose general face mask requirements on the public as long as we meet this threshold requirement level, which again is 100 cases per 100,000 people total over the last 14 days. So that's not 100 cases per day, that's total over the last 14 days per 100,000 people. And we can impose those requirements subject to a list of exceptions and limitations. It cannot apply to people who are eating or drinking, people who have trouble putting on or taking off a face mask without assistance, people who have a bona fide religious objection or medical condition that prevent them from wearing a face mask. You can't give fines or fees to a business or to an entity or to the principals of a business or entity because of customers that aren't wearing masks on their property. Any fine or penalty that is issued cannot exceed $50 per offense and cannot be punished by any term of imprisonment. Enforcement can only be made against individuals, and there is no vicarious liability. It's only the people that directly themselves fail to comply that can be cited. You cannot enforce this at a polling place. At any polling place, nobody shall be denied entry or exit from a polling place for failure to wear a face covering. cannot be enforced on residential property, cannot be enforced. It may be enforced against individuals on private property, but so long as the owner or occupant consents to the enforcement. And so when it comes to things like business locations, they said the order says specifically that businesses can opt out of the mask ordinance being enforceable on their property. And so the way the ordinance that I've drafted reflects that is there's a sign that I created, a sample sign that a business can post in their window. And if they post that on the window, then the sheriff's deputies going into that location cannot cite people on that property for not wearing a mask. If they don't post that on their window, then they're presumed to consent to the enforcement of the law on their property. But that's just in the ordinance, which I prepared for Mayor Pro Tem. The governor's order simply says businesses can choose whether or not it is consenting to enforcement, and they notify the public of that consent by posting a sign.
Well,
yes, sir.
Michael, this is a lot of information to go over, and I understand you've got a draft of a mask ordinance and,
yes,
and a second ordinance to require mask on government property.
Yes, sir.
If we read and refer that tonight as new business and take it up as a committee of the whole next Tuesday, I suppose if it was the will of the commission, we could add that to the agenda for the special call meeting along with CARES funding, the mask ordinance, so that we could pass it next Tuesday and finalize it at the special call meeting. That may be a way that y'all can look at this and we get a draft of it out to you, read it and refer it tonight. Y'all can look at it and see what you think, and then we'll take it up next week at committee meetings. And if you so choose, put it on the agenda for final passage at the special call meeting at 1 o'clock next year.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Mayor Pro Tem.
I think that would be fine with me, because this way it will give all commissioners an opportunity to read it, see it, and if they want to look at it, make amendments or what have you. So if Michael can go ahead and email commissioners, and where everybody can read it, understand it, and ask questions over the next week. If you need to call Michael, then let's just all try to work it out together, and I'll be fine with that.
Good. Okay. Well, then let's proceed that way. We'll read it and refer it tonight as new business, but we'll get Michael or Janice to send out the draft to all of the commissioners so you can have it and start studying it between now and next Tuesday. I got a couple more updates that I need to get to. Michael, you got anything else?
Yes, sir. Just, I'm sorry, that basically covers the governor's order, but I was just going to mention under the Open Meetings Act, if you're having a special called meeting, you cannot amend the agenda once you send out the notice. So if you want it on the agenda, let's go ahead and put it on there, and then you can remove it if you decide not to.
Correct. Yeah, we'll do that. We'll put both of the CARES Act funding and the mask ordinance on the special call agenda for next Tuesday at 1 o'clock. I wanted to give you a census update because we've had a couple of
Commissioner Lucas had something.
Commissioner Lucas, I'm sorry. Did you have something?
I just wanted to be added, since the resolution that I sponsored originally passed. I certainly want to be added on as a sponsor on the Mayor Pro Tem's ordinance, and encourage all of us to do this, because this is something very important for the entire community, and I think all of our signatures need to be on it.
And y'all be seeing two different ordinances, one for public property and one for private business.
Right.
And you want to be on both of them, Commissioner Lucas?
Right.
I'll do that.
If the sponsor doesn't mind.
Yeah.
Very good. All right. Let me see if I can't move on to give you a quick census update. We've got two co-chairs of our complete count committee here at Macon-Bibb County, and that's our clerk Janice Ross and my secretary Carol Payton. And Carol's going to lead us in a short update of the short update of the where we are with the census. Carol, you're muted. You got to touch the top up to the
Good afternoon, everyone.
Okay.
Macon-Bibb County currently stands at a response rate of 50.2%. The final response rate for 2010 was 76%. So as you can see, we are way behind. In the next few days, we will be forwarding a letter from Mayor Rickert to local businesses and members of the Council on Clergy asking for their help in getting the word out. Enumerators began August 11th, and they will finish up on September 30th, which is the deadline for everything. Your group counts, which are your nursing homes, your prisons, etc., will take place sometime in mid-September. Several other activities that will take place before the end of August include we have several food distribution and census promotion events coming up. Friday, August the 21st at Pleasant Grove Baptist Church in Lizella. Wednesday, August the 26th at St. Paul AME Church, which is targeting East Macon, and Beulah Baptist Church, which is targeting the downtown Macon and Houston Avenue area. Monday, August 24th, Greater Bibb Mount Zion Baptist Church. We'll be hosting a few distribution and census be counted, and that's targeting South Macon-Bibb County. Friday the 28th, there's a food distribution and census be counted event at New Pilgrim Baptist Church, which is targeting the Bellevue neighborhood. On Saturday the 22nd, there will be a Hispanic be counted food and school supplies event that's going to be held in South Macon at the corner of Rocky Creek and Pinona. And then lastly, on Saturday, August the 29th, there is a census motorcade comprised of census partners and Macon-Bibb County Department vehicles who are scheduled to go through low self-responding neighborhoods with a be counted message and awareness of census enumerators coming door to door. I have a listing of response rates by census tract, and if anybody would like to have a copy, I'll be happy to send you a copy. And I've also contacted the Regional Commission to see if there's a printable census tract map that we could also put with that. Finally, we have more promotional materials available if you would like to get some for any group, organization, or church that you know would like to distribute them. And right now, that's all I have.
Carol, that's great. But what I would ask for you, one last thing. You got a new fan design for the census, but if you could email all of this information out, especially the dates and times of the different events to every commissioner so that they would have them. It's up to all of us at this point in time this is kind of crunch time. To try to get people to self-respond either by telephone or on the email or those two, I think are the easiest ways to go. There may have been a mail out that they could mail back in at some point in time, but the computer and the telephone, but crunch time, y'all, so to get the count numbers up. So help us if you can.
Mr. Mayor, Carol, would the census tract tell us where we are behind in certain areas of our county?
Right. It would.
Are you going to send us that too, Carol?
I can. The only thing is right now it doesn't have like track 101. It doesn't have where track 101 is. And that's why I'm trying to get a map.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Carol, and thank you, Janice, for all of your hard work on that. I know it's a lot to do. Last item we've got as far as an update is on blight, and I'll see if we can't pull up a little map first. But two things I want you to remember. We talked 6 months or more ago about the it's more than that, about the boundary expansion for the Okmulgee National Monument, now Okmulgee Mounds National Historical Park. And we agreed as a commission that if there were any property that we owned that was going to be transferred to the National Park Service and there was a blighted structure on it, we would remove that at our expense. So the map that's in front of you, the yellow block at the bottom represents the current boundary of the national monument. The blue line that you can see that kind of runs just a little bit above, it's actually touches the yellow at one point, but it includes some space over off Clinton Street. And it also includes some space off Plumtree Lane and Fairview, I think the name of it is. And so what I'm talking to you about tonight is in that lower right-hand corner of Fletcher and Fairview and Plumtree Lane. And there are 3 parcels that are in white within that boundary line. Those right there that Rachel is pointing to, those 3, they are blighted houses on 2 of those parcels. And the land bank has acquired title through the tax to those properties. And I've got a picture of them. And before we leave that, Rachel, let me back up one little time. The parcels shown in green are owned by the Macon Housing Authority, and the Housing Authority has agreed to convey those to the National Park Service. The parcels in red are owned by Macon-Bibb County. They are all vacant, but we still have title to them, as well as the street right-of-way. So they will be coming for your approval, a gift to the National Park Service of all of these parcels and the right-of-way within that part. But now go to the next slide. There you go. This is the one of the houses is to the right. This is an illegal dump site, obviously on the Fletcher Street. Next slide. That's one of the houses on one of the lots that's there. And then the final picture, that's the other house on the other side of the street that's blighted. Do you remember we created a revolving fund out of the proceeds of the tax commissioner's subsequent tax sale and gave the mayor the authority to identify houses and acquire them and blight them and then sell them and put the money back in? Well, I'm hoping that we can use those funds to acquire these houses, clean that place up, and make that part of the donation to the National Park Service. And I was just trying to bring that to your attention. That's the way we're headed. We're talking to Cass now about when he can start tearing those things down since we've got the money appropriated and identified. Questions, comments about that from anybody? Good. If not, let me go on to the last item. We're not going to have time, I'm afraid, to review the agenda for tonight, but we've taken care of the mask ordinance. We're going to read it and refer it. But the other item was the Train Recreation Center, the contract with Piedmont Construction, and Mayor Pro Tem made the motion to untable that and Schlesinger and so here we are with the discussion. I'm hoping we can get a motion to do pass and put it on the agenda for tonight's meeting and discuss it more at length at that point in time.
I just got a question.
Yes, sir, Mayor Pro Tem.
About the mask mandate. Is there another wording that could be used? Because I think the word mandate kind of, folks see it as we're demanding something. Michael, is there something else we could use? Because is an ordinance, a resolution? Because if, and somebody has said that to me about the wording mandate, and it may just be nothing. Somebody, if everybody's fine with it, but just, I think it just sounds demanding to some folks.
Right. It could certainly be an amendment to it. We could refer to it as a health and safety ordinance.
Excuse me. I think we need to stick with the word mandate because we want people to know the seriousness of this. And mandate is the term that's used generally on this. So I think people ought to understand that we are saying that this is serious. So let's keep mandate.
Okay.
All right. That's fine.
Going back to the going back to the Train Recreation Center, can I get a motion to do pass that in the committee of the whole, so it'll be on the agenda for action tonight?
So move.
By Schlesinger, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Commissioner Lucas. Then this really is just to move it and advance and put it on the agenda for the 6 o'clock meeting where we can discuss it more at length. So all in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no.
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 Got 2 no's, but I think the ayes have it, so it'll be on the agenda for
How
6
can you
o'clock.
tell there's certain people that are muted? I didn't hear their vote.
Well, I'm basically heard the 2 no's, and I think the rest of the people are satisfied to put it on the agenda so you can vote against it. We'll have a roll call vote, but I'm trying to get us started on at 6 o'clock is what I'm trying to do.
You're assuming there were never more than 2 yeses, but okay.
Yeah, that was a ruling of the chair.
Okay.
That was a ruling of the chair. So well, it'll be on the agenda, and we can talk about it at length then. Very quickly, then for the just for everybody, the old business that we're going to talk about. The first item of old business is an ordinance to approve and authorize the reappropriation of $200,000 from SPLOST revenues from the Central City Commons line item to pay for the Cotton Avenue Plaza. The Committee of the Whole recommends approval on that. I think that was a 5-4 vote out of the Committee of the Whole. Item B is a resolution authorizing the Americas and Sumter County Hospital Authority to issue bonds and refinance facilities in Macon. Committee of the Whole recommends approval of that. Item C is a temporary expansion of downtown's First Friday to allow First Friday type activities every night of the week, as I understand it. The Economic and Community Development Committee heard that and recommends approval. Item D is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with the extension of the Houston County Board of Health WIC program for leased office space at 456. Facilities and Engineering Committee heard that and recommends approval. Item E is a resolution about paying the lease agreement with A.T. Holt for the parking lot behind the courthouse for some of the courthouse parking, and the Facilities and Engineering Committee recommends approval there. Item F is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a lease agreement for farming on the airport property, and Facilities and Engineering Committee heard that and recommends approval. Item G is an ordinance to approve and authorize the appropriation of up to $40,000 for professional services and purchasing the landfill and the transfer station to appraise them and get some preliminary work done on that as far as acquisition is concerned. Item H, resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a purchase and sale agreement for 4 utility vehicles for the fire department. And that was heard by the Operations and Finance Committee, who recommends approval. Then there's a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a construction contract with Stafford Builders for the Smart Park. Operations and Finance Committee heard that and recommends approval. And then there was a transfer of the Superior Court clerk's money within her budget of $7,800 to cover some salary increases, in Operations and Finance Committee heard that and recommend approval. Then there's some new business that I'll read when we get there. And the last item of old business is an item K, is where we'll take up the Train Recreation Center. And I'll make myself a note not to forget that. Any questions or comments about tonight's meeting? Okay, if not, then I'm going to adjourn this meeting so that we can start with the 6 o'clock meeting on time for a change. So without objection, I'll call this pre-commission meeting adjourned.